Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name's Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got Mr. Rohan. How's it going?
Hey man, good.
I think I'm bloody sick. You're tired, exhausted. So it's going to be an interesting episode. And of course, it's a massive release. What have we got? 2023.11.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with the usual opening. This episode of the Home Assistant Podcast is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and the ESP Home projects. Configuration is done via the user interface, so no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. Okay,
Nice.
There we go. Finally got there. Here we go. So, 2023.11.
Yeah, it's November already.
November, and one of the biggest releases, I think, in terms of stuff coming out of there. But first, before we get on to Home Assistant, first want to big a shout out to Chris, Mike, and Kat, who have signed up to our Patreon. So big thank you for that. We do appreciate the support. We are working on what we can give in terms of value for the podcast there. So I've been trying to push out the episodes a little bit earlier, as soon as they're edited, fresh off the press, straight onto the Patreon feed. If you can subscribe, we do appreciate it. It's going to help us grow the podcast and make it better. And also, one of our the guests that we've had on a little bit ago, Glenn, reached out to us and said, hey, if you're interested in people wanting to send tips across to the podcast, you should look into things like Podcasting 2.0 and the Lightning Network of Bitcoin. There are what's called the Value for Value podcasting. I actually forgot that I had set this up a while ago. I use Fountain.fm for some of my podcasts that I listen to. Thank you to everyone that's been boosting the episodes there. It certainly is appreciated. It helps us grow the podcast as well. So, if you want to give any feedback to the podcast and want to send in a boost, we'd be happy to read the comments there and get a two-way conversation happening there as well.
Yeah, perfect. That's great. Thank you so much again.
All right, state of the open home has been moved around. What's going on there?
Yeah, so they moved around a little bit. So normally it happens around this time-ish, right? So it's going to be moved to a little later in the year. Sorry, not in the year. It's going to be moved into a little earlier next year. I think it's just there's always so much going on right now, and then you go into a lull where nothing is happening. So I think they're just trying to even out the workload and stuff a little bit. It makes sense. So I mean, if you're sitting here waiting anxiously for that, it's going to be just a couple more months. I think they're thinking probably early spring. I guess that's spring. My spring. So that would be.
So what we're
hopefully,
talking quarter two-ish, like a March, April-ish timeline.
Probably, I think, around there, right? Should be cool. So we'll keep you posted when we hear more. And
this used to be the State of the Union. Now it's the State of the Open Home. There was, before COVID, there was live events. People would, physically appear in person. There'd be a keynote from Paulus. Now that has moved to virtually.
And it happened around, again, it was around Home Assistant's birthday, right? So it's just, there's all the birthday stuff happening. There's always like a nice big splash launch thing happening and all of that. And then, so makes sense.
Nice one. And Year of the Voice. So we had the Year of the Voice chapter 4. Really cool to see custom wake words.
Yeah.
I did see there was a couple of cheeky ones in there. Really appreciate Jarvis being in there. The nod to the Amazon Echo I saw. That little lady's named there too.
Yes.
So
it's pretty cool. I've been playing with it. It's worked pretty well so far. Ran into one or two challenges. I think that was also because I was on earlier code. I haven't had time to pick it up since, so I'm hoping it's some of the things have been fixed. I know Paul has mentioned there's one or two pieces from when the creators first found out about what's going on and stuff like that. We just got a little bit of an early release that we had access to. So hopefully I'll have something to show soon. I'll just hold this up for now. It's a little
Nice.
M5 stack Atom, but we'll talk about that probably in another episode because I haven't had a ton of time to do a whole lot with it. But
Yep.
but we can do that there.
That's it. So in terms of the release, 2023.11, it is a huge release. I'm actually surprised, like at some of the things that have landed. I wasn't expecting them, but Matter 1.2 is now available. So there's no devices that you can benefit from, but Home Assistant now supports version 1.2 of the Matter protocol, which brings in vacuums, fridges, dishwashers. They're all in the new spec, which is cool to see. I'm wondering how many manufacturers, like I just got a new fridge, and it's got a Wi-Fi connection. Is that going to get an update to Matter? Because I surely hope so. I'm probably not going to buy a dishwasher now until I get a Matter capable one. It's.
But are you though? Like it's I don't know. Some of the things are like kind of far fetched. Like I don't know.
Would I spend extra money to get a Matter dishwasher, for example?
That's what I mean.
I mean, maybe. Like at the moment, like I've got that power plug meter watching. Is a dishwasher done? To be able to have like better visibility, like what stage of your cycle a dishwasher is at. Maybe does it need like the rinse aid to be topped up? Is that tank empty?
That'd be kind of cool.
Right. Like if those sensors were available, then why not? And if I needed to replace a dishwasher, I'm not going to replace a functioning dishwasher that's just for the hell
that's just wasteful,
right? Although we did just break annoyingly the handle on our dishwasher is like half snapped off, and it's like a cheap plasticky handle, right? I'm like, well, this is just frustrating now. Like it's really awkward to open. And like, what am I going to do? Like call up someone and say, hey, have you got a spare part for this handle? Like, and then come and replace it. Like, it's an old dishwasher. It's probably a decade old, right?
Yeah.
At that point, just replace the dishwasher. It's so wasteful, but.
So now you have to wait. It's wait for
wait. Yeah, that's it. This is a reason to stop me from just going to, Best Buy or Good Guys or wherever else I'd go and say buy a new dishwasher because it's handle, right? But
yeah. But what is cool though is and this they were chatting about this on the creators call too, which is Home Assistant is like pretty much got Matter server the new update in there like 2-3 days after the spec came out.
Nice.
As of time of recording, I mean, we're still in October while we're recording this. And the creators call happened. Oh God, it was last Wednesday, which is today's the 28th, whatever that math works out to. And they I think the new Matter standard released like the Monday or something like that, and it's already in. So couple of vendors are already like starting to look. They're utilizing Home Assistant to do their testing on as kind of the reference design. So it's kind of neat, right? So not that they're going to be building for Home Assistant, but it's just if it's Matter, it's Matter, right? That's the point of Matter. So so I thought that was kind of a neat little thing there that other vendors
also just shows how active this development community is, right? To beat like the big other vendor players, right, that could throw money at it. Whereas now there's an open source project that's faster than their own development timelines. Absolutely.
And one little note I found out about that too is going forward, if you're running like the RC release of Home Assistant, make sure you download the beta channel, because just like Z-Wave.js, where there's a bit of a dependency on the version, like the most recent version of Matter the most recent version of Z-Wave.js to the most recent version of Home Assistant, that coupling will start to happen with Matter server.
So there is a different Matter server that you need to run as well as Home Assistant, like
depending on how you're running it. If you're running it on the OS, it doesn't matter because the OS kind of just handles all of that.
Gotcha.
So if you have like a Home Assistant Yellow or you're just running it in a VM, that way, then you're fine. If you're running it like kind of like I am on Docker, things like that, it makes a little more of a difference. If you're running it old school in a VM virtual environment, then it really matters. I don't know how many people are still doing that. I think a lot of people have moved over either to the OS or doing like myself, the container, more supported model. I'm sure there's folks out there doing it. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Just
a
little more upkeep. But yeah. So that's there.
Nice.
Yeah. To-do lists. So there's a new device class that's now landed in 2023-11, which is called a to-do list. As the name kind of suggests, it is a type of list. And shopping lists, which have already existed in the past, have now been actually migrated to a to-do list. But the nice thing behind this, and a little bit of foreshadowing here, is integrations can now go in and be able to create their own to-do list.
Nice.
So, for example, maybe you have a Google to-do list where Google can, you have whatever you keep synchronized in there. Yep. And now that can actually be brought in as a provider, as an integration into Home Assistant, and that can actually start synchronizing those to-do lists. So it's actually pretty cool. But basically, the to-do entity just represents a bunch of tasks, and what the state of that entity will be, it'll be the amount of tasks that are remaining. So stuff that isn't marked complete or checked off effectively, right?
Yeah.
So that will be represented by the actual state of the entity. So if you have like 5 in your shopping list entity will show 5 that haven't been checked off. So that's kind of cool in there. So you can also use some services behind it. So if you have automations, things like that, to mark off tasks. So again, maybe you have a button that you press to that when you like refill your soap or something like that, right? So it's like, okay, great. Sure. You press the button, it'll go in and it will run the service to go in and like change the status of that task. Or potentially, I mean, Phil, you use, I don't know if you still do it, but you use the Grossy.
I did, yeah. I've
integration.
Since moving house, I haven't had time to set it up again.
Yeah,
but I do. I every time I look at things around, I was like, oh, I wish I'd known that was out of stock. God, we've had that automated, right? Like,
right. Well, now it's. I know Grocery manages some of your shopping lists already, right? Because you can say, hey, I have like 7 cans of soda, whatever. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. But you can actually have something like that now go in and say, hey, when it hits 0, go in and just immediately update my shopping list, right? To do whatever. So again, it doesn't have to be a shopping list. It's called a to-do list for a reason, right? We're just using shopping list as an example. And you can have multiple lists in there too. And if you look at the UI, it's actually kind of slick where when you collapse the sidebar, your lists kind of show up. Your different lists show up in Home Assistant. So so it's pretty cool. Check it out. It's a kind of neat thing. I haven't had the chance to play with it yet. I know we spent quite a bit of time talking about it on the creators call, because everybody was like, "Whoa, this is interesting. Why do we opt to do this versus that and stuff like that?" And it was pretty neat. And then so Todoist and Google Tasks are coming in there as well.
Yeah, cool. So I have a few thoughts, if I may.
I want to hear.
I'll indulge you for a few minutes, because I think this is a really big feature.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the, I say it all the time, maybe one of the biggest features for 2023, or the biggest seismic changes. So I think one, I said on one of the creators call recently, one of the things lacking, for a voice assistant, for me to replace, my Amazon Echo, things like to-do lists need to be, I always tell her, like, add this to my shopping list, do this.
Yeah.
I can see now, if, now that we've got Year of the Voice going on, this ties so neatly into that, right?
Sure.
It's going to make to-do lists, like a first-class entity or integration that the voice assistant can now leverage, right? shopping list, and can mark it off, check it off. Fantastic. Love it. I love that there are automations to add tasks, so a battery runs out, replace this battery, add it to, home maintenance, to-do list can be there. Replace this battery. This battery is below 20%. You need to replace it.
That's actually amazing automation, because Home Assistant can see your battery state, so you can just go in and do it.
And then, if you've got more than 10 tasks, show a card to say, hey, you get off your ass and do some of this stuff, right? You've got more than 10 home maintenance items that need to be done, right? But what I'm really excited for, and it's a bit personal, and I'll share. So I use an AI calendar assistant because I have so much. My wife says, I have too many projects, too many hobbies, too many projects always on the go, right? And I never devote enough time to them. So I use a calendar AI assistant to do things, scheduling the time, when I need to edit the podcast, or, if I, do some home automation, maybe I think of an idea, I'll put it in there, and then it'll schedule some time in my calendar out of work hours, so I don't forget it. So right now I've got things like, got to edit this episode before the release date comes out. Got to set up some blinds in my son's room. So it automatically, I put in due dates, and it just works out, all right, based on this due date, do this in this order, sort of thing, right? It's really cool. That integrates with Google Tasks. So now I can have things pump into that AI. So I can do things like when a battery runs out, right? Okay, add a task for 15 minutes that I need to go and replace batteries, and put it as high priority in Google Tasks. That'll get synced over to my AI assistant, and then blocks out in my calendar, 15 minutes on Monday, go do this. So I'm really excited for this.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah.
I'll leave a link to that assistant if anyone's interested in the show notes. But I think Google Tasks and Todoist, great integrations to start off with as well.
That is cool. Yeah. No, and I think that's a pretty neat use case there too.
Yeah. So many to-do lists. Love it. One of the things I do, I'm really, as another personal favorite, the custom status for tile cards. So you can now customize information displayed on the cards in your dashboard. So if you want to show the state of when it was last updated, now you can, which was something I always found frustrating with the mushroom cards, or just the cards in general, right? You had to choose what that second line was, right? You couldn't have multiple things, right? You'd have to go into the more info panel. So now I'm going to change my thermostat card to say who last changed the thermostat. Because a couple of weeks ago I walked into the living room, and it was it's winter, Southern Hemisphere, or it's spring at the moment. It was bloody hot, and I said, what the hell is going on why is it so warm in here? And my wife's like, oh, just, turn the heater on. I looked at it, it was set to 30 degrees. It's like, nah, I did not do that. That must be an error with home.
Whoa.
No, you said it. I looked, sure enough, it said, my wife's name, done, 30 degrees. I think the iOS app and the dashboard was a bit buggy at the time. It was just when I was running the beta, so the new way to, the new card was might be bugging out a little bit. But no, sure enough, she had inadvertently set the thermostat to 30 degrees. So now I'm going to have whoever changed the thermostat or the air conditioner setting on my dashboard, so I don't have to go into the history and find out who's done it.
Hold people accountable, right?
Exactly,
without having to do extra clicks. So that's good.
Exactly.
It is pretty cool. And again, sometimes you might not care about what the default piece that's showing there is and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool that you can do that. That's nice.
But even I think in the examples I've got brightness of what the dim level it's set to, right? And maybe what battery, how much battery's left when it was last updated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even to use your example for a thermostat, you could also show what the current temperature is versus what it's set to, and stuff like that, right? So a lot of cool things there. All right. The conditional card has gotten some new conditions as well. So Paul's been hard at work to bring in some new rules there into the conditional card. So you can start doing things like showing or hiding cards based on who's logged in, the state of an entity. So it's like a numeric state of the entity, for example, or even like show the card depending on is it being displayed on like a phone or a tablet or something else, like on a like a desktop screen, whatever. Um, which is pretty interesting actually. That's actually really cool.
Not just cool, it's bloody cool. Like, these are fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really excited for these. Like, I have a tablet user, like, so I have a tablet in hanging up on the wall somewhere. But I can now dictate, I don't have to have two separate dashboard views. I can actually say, if it's this person logged in, only display these set of cards, right? Don't display the ability to do this. Or, similar, like if a child's logged in on their tablet, don't display controls for the TV after a certain amount of time.
Absolutely.
Right? But I think the really big one is that device, like, being able to make it more responsive based on phone, tablet, or desktop. Because I've struggled with, I've got a nice Lovelace layout on desktop, a tablet screen, but as soon as I look at it on the phone, everything's all squished up. Now I can do things like I would do in web development, have like, all right, if it's tablet, display this row, if it's desktop, display this row, sort of thing. Change the layout a little bit better. So very cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
And if you want a bit of a nostalgia back to the Windows 95, 98 days, you can now restart Home Assistant in safe mode, which will restart Home Assistant. It will disable all the custom integrations, custom dashboards, everything, and will boot up Home Assistant vanilla. So it's useful if you are running into issues and you want to rule out, is it a custom component? Is it me? Or is it Home Assistant? So, yeah. And if you want to get out of safe mode, just reboot again.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you, just to keep it, hopefully less confusing or clear it up, there used to be something called safe mode when Home Assistant kind of crapped out. That's now gotten renamed to recovery mode. So this is not that, right? So recovery mode, I think that change happened, like that nomenclature change happened a little bit ago.
Right.
I don't think that's new. So, but basically, so don't get that confused with recovery mode. Recovery mode is when something has happened now and Home Assistant's like, hey, I'm just trying to come up so you can try and troubleshoot me. Yep. Safe mode is something you boot into while you're just trying to troubleshoot or something like that. And to your point, Phil, like, it just disables all custom Lovelace components, anything custom that's not native just basically gets
but things like
down.
Like Z-Wave, ZHA, all those like core integrations are still going to work.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Nice. Rather than it just being like, hey, here's the minimal Home Assistant piece, right? That it
to
is
get a UI up and show you what errors you've got. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Improv devices. So this is kind of cool. So Paulus was saying he was actually part of like the Improv Wi-Fi standard committee, and ESP Home is part of this. So what Improv is basically provisioning devices on Wi-Fi over Bluetooth. And it's like, okay, we've kind of, that's not really novel or anything like that. But here's the cool part. So ESP Home obviously is able to do things like BLE proxy. So now the experience can be something like, let's say I'm not a device manufacturer. Maybe I'm just a custom like manufacturer. I make my own little whatever projects.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm selling them or I'm not, whatever. But the idea is I can make my code generic enough and I can say, hey, for Wi-Fi, connect via Bluetooth, and that could be even over like a web page, right? So it doesn't have to be exactly like how we like flash ESP Home devices, for example, or Tasmota devices through a browser. Do the same thing, except the browser would now have access to Bluetooth. and then push your credentials, your Wi-Fi credentials and stuff through there. Neat thing is, so let's say I have one of these guys and it's acting as a Bluetooth proxy. And for those that are listening on the podcast, I just realized me holding up something isn't going to show you anything. If you have an ESP device that's acting as a Bluetooth proxy, that can now go in and automatically provision your device. So picture this. Now I've got this device that I've ordered from some maker somewhere. It's based on ESP Home. I go in, I plug in my device. Bluetooth proxy picks it up and says, "Hey, do you want to provision this device in Home Assistant?"
Nice.
In Home Assistant, you go, "Yes, here's my credentials." Okay, that automatically gets pushed through the Bluetooth proxy, and then your device just pops in there, and then you just go through the full setup flow.
That's cool.
That's pretty slick. So ESP Home is one of the first folks that's actually implemented this. It's you can see more information about it, and there's a demo. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well. It's improv-wifi.com. But yeah, it is pretty cool. There's a little video in there. You can go check it out, see what that looks like. But basically, it looks like it's going to be adopted by WLED, Tesmoda. Obviously, ESP Home kind of has it already. ESP Web Tools, Clockwise, and Luciferin. So, is this going to affect a ton of people? Probably not, but it might make your onboarding experience easier depending on the type of devices you're using, right? So, it just requires whoever's building that device to just include that Improv Wi-Fi piece in their code, and off it goes.
Very cool. And making it open, right? Like now other companies can hopefully just take that, not have to rebuild it, and then it will be easier to integrate with Home Assistant and other third parties in the future, right?
Yeah.
All right. Script fields. So when you create scripts in Home Assistant, you can define fields that can be passed to the scripts, which I love doing. It's just, put fields in and say, okay, I want to target this entity, make it a light domain. So now those fields can be shown in the UI when you call the script. So if you do have a field that accepts, a light as a variable to that script, you can actually now have a drop down to pick the light in the UI, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. It's going to make things a lot easier.
Yeah.
For just doing things, right? Like, again, scripts are pretty powerful, so that's nice.
Yeah, a lot of code reuse.
That's it. Last but not least, HomeKit got a bit of an update as well. So HomeKit can now pick up changes as stuff is happening. So whereas before you kind of needed to go in, restart HomeKit and do all that jazz, now it's just kind of seamless. Something changes in Home Assistant, HomeKit automatically picks that up when it comes to like a device level change or something like that and pushes it out. So you don't need to necessarily sit there and monitor, kind of like a nice little watchdog there. Just hey, something happened. Okay, here we go. Somehow that was probably like the least exciting one, but that's big especially for everybody that uses HomeKit, right? It's like
no more having to restart. Yeah,
that's nice.
All right, new integrations. Google Tasks is obviously a new one we've touched on before, so good to see Google Tasks in Home Assistant now. And Edge Plus is like a Tammy water bar. Am I reading that right? They're boil water and get filter sensors. So if you've got one of the Tammy 4 Edge or Edge Plus devices, you now can integrate it with Home Assistant.
Yeah. Actually, I just realized we didn't talk about one other update. So backtracking just a touch, custom date ranges in the energy dashboard. Basically in the energy dashboard, you can now go in and start to say, hey, from this date to this date, I want to see what my usage looks like, whatever, right? So it's nice. Again, I don't think it's going to change anything from your automations or anything like that, but it's nice to be able to go in and see what you've done or what you've used within a specific period of time. So that's nice.
As opposed to like 7 days, you could choose like a 10-day period, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Like it you can go in and pick whatever. Like I think you can pick a
Yes.
couple of weeks or a few months, maybe a couple of months even, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they've moved it over to the new again, Home Assistant follows the material design language, right?
Yeah.
So you can pick like today, yesterday, this week, this month, this quarter, or this year, which is typically what that's kind of what the standard pane that Google uses as well. So it's very similar to that. You'll see that if you use like Google Analytics, things like that. Those are some of the selectors, and when you start filtering things in there too.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's a standard because sometimes people might be like, why do I care about this quarter or like whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
but quarter is actually handy to have because again, if you're trying to keep your energy provider honest, again, you might be getting billed quarterly.
Yes. Exactly.
I think my water is billed quarterly or something like some weird period
And
of
sometimes,
time.
like, you may go build on the 13th of the month or something like that, and it's the
Yeah,
12th to the
100%.
13th every month, right? So,
Yeah,
being able to
yeah,
do those date ranges makes sense.
yeah. Some breaking changes. Sidewave JS as usual. The version needs to happen. So just make sure your versions match between your Sidewave JS and your Home Assistant.
World Air Quality Index, the state attributes of that sensor have been moved to their own sensors now. So the previous state attributes are now deprecated and will be removed in 2024.5. So you've got that nice 6-month window.
Yeah. And last but not least, 8 Sleep. The API has changed, and basically that means it's no longer accessible. Actually, I guess that's not last but not least, but I mean last but not least for us. Just a couple of others. Check it out in the show notes.
That is almost like a Cloud Strikes Again moment for me. Like 8 Sleep, I see are still advertising their like smart mattress to me on Facebook. As you know, and it's like not a cheap mattress. Like I think
No.
it's like over $1,000 Australian, like easily.
Yeah.
And now they're
Well,
just going to
it's technically a cover or something, isn't it? And
yeah,
then like that
exactly.
cover
Yeah, it's not
goes
it's not a
to
whole
like
mattress. Yeah, so it's like a fancy mattress protector that can cool and heat your mattress. But now they're just going to block out the API. Oh, and I think I read somewhere in the comments that it's cloud dependent, so that if your internet's out, you can't change the settings of your 8 Sleep cover.
right.
So
Yeah.
like
And they've
I'm not a
got a lot
fan.
of like big names that use it and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
again, it's probably sent to I don't know who's I know I still get the ads where MKBHD is like, okay, let me talk about sleep for a second, right? Or like something like that. And
yeah.
it's like um but yeah, I mean,
Can we
yeah,
talk about
pseudos.
Mazda for a second? Did you see that blog post on the Home Assistant website about Mazda?
I saw it. I kind of glanced by it because I don't own a Mazda. I
Yeah.
know there was conversation about it even on the creators call, but I was
Yeah.
clearly distracted. Give me the explain like I'm 5.
Okay. So Home Assistant, like one person in the Home Assistant community discovers the Mazda has an API. Reverse engineers the calls to the API and creates an integration in Python, a library in Python, which then someone else picks up and creates a Home Assistant integration so that now you can add your car's details, from what it can read from the API, into Home Assistant as sensors, and you don't have to open up the Mazda app to get those sensors into Home Assistant. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Mazda says, don't like the sound of that, sends a cease and desist letter to the creator of the Python library, who then says, hey man, I didn't sign up for this, and takes down the library and then has to take down the Home Assistant integration because they don't want to get sued by Mazda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that, just what poor hand, like it's like Philips Hue demanding Cloud Council just deciding one day, no, we're going to not allow third-party Zigbee bulbs. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, I'd be tempted to say, like, if I had bought a Mazda, I'd like go to the dealer and return the car. Like, It's not doing what I could do. I can't. I mean,
it's
frustrating.
It's a really let's call it backwards way of thinking. Where and as you were talking, I just pulled up the blog post, right? And it talks about like, hey, all these other folks are opening up. All these other car manufacturers are opening up. Like clearly, it's the way of the future, and they are inviting. Home Assistant kind of openly has invited Mazda to at least come to the table and talk about it. To say, hey, maybe we can kind of explain some of the benefits that we can gain from here. But yeah, I think but it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like people doubling down on just something that's not a good idea. It's like, like, or it's like somebody saying something racist and being like, okay, I agree with you, but, and it's like, okay, if you're saying but, you just negated everything. You just backpedaled on, right? So
yes, it's your data, but we own the API, so you can't access it in the way we want to, right?
Right. So, which is fine. Release a proper API behind it, then, and do that kind of thing, right? So the fact that you have it, again, somebody found it, whatever. But I don't know. I think sending a cease and desist is kind of harsh, right? Like, especially to an individual. Like it's not like it's it's not a big company that's like monetizing something and things like that. I totally get that part, right? Like I don't know, like if like a Google was doing something where they like reverse engineered their API and did something and they're making money off of it and stuff like that. Totally understand why they would take that stance. This is just stupid, right? You're going after. I mean, I don't mean to sound crude, but it's almost like are you that worried about how fragile your IP is behind like doing something like that, right? And maybe that means, fine, your API wasn't suited for that scale or something like that, then scale up, right? Like it's there's enough folks out there that are very familiar with a lot of these technologies, and hire somebody and make sure that it's feasible to do that, right? Again, not telling anybody how to run their business, but it's I don't know. I just don't see that being a good PR move, right? But
no, I don't. Like who's going to win out of this situation, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of silly, but I mean, we're seeing this a little bit now, right?
Yeah. Like how many more? I'm over it. With that said, let's throw to an ad break. Maybe there'll be an Mazda ad for you. So we had a couple of episodes ago. I talked about my Zigbee issues, my battery devices going offline. I had the whole thing about moving over to the Sky Connect, and everything was working beautifully. Rohan has bloody come back. I'm frustrated.
What happened? Have you found have you done any troubleshooting, or just one of those things where
it's when I add new devices, things just start dropping off, and it's the same Zigbee devices like my Aquara door window sensors. There's random ones, some water leak sensors. They just drop off.
Right.
And I'm now in a point where I'm like, okay, I've got Sky Connect, I've got a Combi. I don't necessarily want to buy a Sonoff, which I know Charlie recommended as the answer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. So we actually got some home assistant kit. So I got one of these bad boys, the home assistant,
the green. Yeah.
Nabokasa was very nice to send me one of those. I haven't opened it yet, still freshly in its box. I'm considering using that just as the OS to replace. I'm running Z-Wave JS on another server, so I can have it, in the center of the house. I may look at running like the Zigbee to MQTT add-on with the Combi stick in another location and go back to running two Zigbee networks. Because maybe the Zigbee, maybe there's too many devices for the hardware to handle, and they're just dropping off. I don't know. I'm still experimenting.
I was looking at some, again, I don't know that this is necessarily what it is, but um, they're a little advanced, but there are commands to look at your like I guess in the Zigbee world they call it energy utilization, I think.
Right.
But basically like how noisy is each channel,
Yeah.
right? So that might be something you want to do. I think it's called running an energy scan or something like that.
Yeah. The thing is like, and I didn't get a chance to do it, but if I if I load in a backup of the radio settings, those devices, I don't have to pair them. They'll come back. So it's
Yeah.
not like it's for whatever reason, like the controller's just marking them as unavailable. And yeah. So I don't know. I've also got some
Yeah.
IKEA blinds that aren't playing nicely with ZHA that might do better with the quirks on Zigbee to MQTT. So that's what I'm thinking. Just run two Zigbee networks. But they returned. I'm frustrated. Zigbee was, supposed to be, I thought Zigbee was in a good place, but no. Nothing drops out from Z-Wave. Z-Wave has its own issues, but Z-Wave is much more solid, much more expensive, but much more solid. Whereas Zigbee just seems to be flaky.
I wonder if you're just hitting a scale. How many Zigbee devices do you have in?
I think it's 68 right or would have just touched 70, but most a good third, maybe even half would be powered, Philips Hue light bulbs, which acts as routers, right? And when I pair, these battery devices, I'm not pairing them directly to the controller. I'm pairing them, next to a Philips Hue light bulb next to it, so it gets the right routes, right? So I just, in theory, I should not be hitting device limits like that.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if if there's limits per router or per controller.
Yeah.
Right. Where Home Assistant is the controller and any plugged in device is a router.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Interesting. That's
that's my rant. I'm sorry. It sucks. I will let people know how I go with running two Zigbee networks when I get time to set that up. I'll have to put that into Google Tasks and get that scheduled in my calendar. So
there
you go.
I mean, so since you're showing off your Home Assistant green, my Home Assistant yellow finally showed up.
Yes, well done. Did you get the green or the yellow first?
I got the green first, and
nice,
and then the yellow. The yellow I had actually done from when it was on Crowd Supply. So when it was basically in their like Kickstarter phase, right? When they first announced it, whatever. I think I didn't buy it immediately. I think I got it in like March or something like that. I placed the order. And just because of all the, I think the Raspberry Pi shortages and stuff. What is cool though is they decided that because there's a shortage, I forget which one I originally ordered. There's a little note in here saying, "Hey, you actually got a CM4 with 32 gig of eMMC rather than you ordering 16 gig, just because
nice.
we didn't have stock." So I guess that's kind of nice. It's nice that they're just like, "Hey, we got these units in. It's not like it's higher than what you ordered, right? So you don't have that on us as an and as a sorry for our inconvenience kind of thing, which I really upgraded. I appreciate it. Sorry. And it was like, it literally says, we didn't want to make you, because we didn't want to make you wait any longer, we decided to gift you a free upgrade. So that's nice. And I appreciate it, because I know I've it's been a while, because I was like, it was first supposed to, I got it in March. It was already set to ship in like, I think like June, and then it was pushed to August, and then pushed to October. So finally, end of October, I've received mine. So but that's from the actual original campaign. I think now they sell it on Seed Studio, I think, right? So
I think they're pretty
or is it Seed or Mouse, one of some of those. Yeah.
So will that eventually be your Home Assistant instance running on the yellow? Is that your plan?
That's my plan. I'm trying to get away from using my. So right now I just run everything on my on like a lab server.
Yep.
I'm just trying to move away from it. It's just really loud. So it probably will become my main Home Assistant box.
Yep.
Not anytime immediately. I think I want to play around with it, do that kind of thing, and then the green is going to become my like dev test box and stuff like that.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so then that way I can have like a nice, clean dev
Production
environment.
sandbox. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Are you going to do any of like
um,
the hardware upgrades? Because you can get like a Coral and plug that into the yellow, I think. And
yeah, so the Coral, it has to be the USB version.
right.
You can't run the M.2 version on it. I think there's some issue that they found. And they made that pretty clear fairly early on, pretty much I think like immediately when they found it, probably like April or May
Yeah, gotcha.
this year. And do I want to do that? Probably, maybe. I don't know yet, but still TBD. But it'll be nice because one of the things is stuff comes out for the OS first, right? And it's a lot easier on the OS and stuff like that. And
I've never
so
experienced the OS add-on store yet. Like, I'm really excited to get the green up and running
yeah,
and have like that whole add-on store. Like, not hacks, the official add-on store, right? Like,
yeah,
I want to see what the
for
buzz is
running
all about.
containers, like
Yeah,
like Matter server or like
exactly.
all of those kind of things. But they've actually been doing a pretty good job. So like Matter server originally, I believe, was only available on the add-on store when it was like very early on when they started out. But now I got it running on my standard Docker setup, and yeah, works great. Same with from some of the Year the Voice stuff. A lot of that stuff is now available on just a standard Docker container. So like Whisper and all of those kind of things
Nice.
is now on this. Yeah, so it's I don't know, it's pretty nice. I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to play with that. Again, it's just been a little crazy, so I haven't had the time to even open it. I just like I opened it quickly. Was like, oh, cool, and then put it back in its box. But yeah,
That's cool.
so nice and exciting.
In some news for us, we got a new website. Check it out,
Yeah.
spodcast.io. You may not know this, but we've been doing video of us doing the podcast with guests and ourselves for quite some time. So the website reflects that. It's an easy way to watch the videos on YouTube. Please feel free to subscribe there as well. But yeah, enjoy the website. It's taken me a while to get it there, but we finally got a little bit of a fresher website. Home Assistant's getting, or they've got the new logo. They're getting a whole bunch of new assets. A lot. It's time for us to, like, become more modern and yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, and thanks for your hard work on that, Phil. That was for those of you wondering, that was 100% Phil. Outside of Phil sending me being like, "Hey, what do you think?" that was my input into it, and I think you did a great job. So thanks for that, Phil.
Thank you. My plan is to automate as much as I can. Right now that I've got this website done, I can. All right, now how do I get our show notes to automatically push into the website? Right. So
yeah, that's great. A little bit more of a little bit of a downer topic. So a little bit of a PSA as well. Smoke detectors, folks, check them. Invest in a good quality one. I just know some. I just heard some news from somebody that I know whose house unfortunately did catch on fire, and there it was. Luckily, nobody was hurt or anything like that. But it was a chemical fire from what I understand. So, there was a ton of chemical smoke from what I understand. So,
yep.
And it started out, I think, in their garage or something like that. So, he mentioned that it was, he was like, the Nest Protect specifically in this case is what he was using, and he was like, it saved my family's life just because, again, it was like, hey, because it does announce, right? Like even like I've got a couple in the house too, and like like, hey, there's smoke detected in the basement or in like the hallway or wherever, right? So that actually, he found that helped quite a bit for them, and they were able to luckily escape. So, that being said, folks, please make sure you regularly check your smoke detectors and stuff like that. You never think it's going to happen to you, but it can.
Yep.
But with that said, again, smart smoke detectors they exist. So that way, even if there's, you're not home and maybe your loved ones are and stuff like that, you can still get an alert, be able to respond to it. Hopefully, if you're close enough or something like that. Definitely something worth investing in if you haven't already. Here it is a regulation where you are legally required to have smoke detectors at home. I believe carbon monoxide as well. We've got those in our house. Even if you're in a place where it is optional, I would definitely suggest looking at that. And I think they typically last like 10 years or something like that is when they're good for.
Crazy now, yeah. Even the batteries, like they last 10 years.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So, smoke, carbon monoxide. I would definitely get those, and they I believe the Nest Protect is 2-in-1. So, if not,
I actually got a Nest Protect because I was renting in my previous house, and we had like an old gas heater. And I didn't trust to know that we weren't going to get carbon monoxide poisoning. So I just bought a Nest Protect battery powered one, stuck it on a bookcase near the heater, and then I knew like, okay, if we're going to get poisoned, this thing's going to beep at us, right? And since like reading, you messaged me about this the other day, and I was like, all right, in this new house, we've got the laws here are a bit strange. So any house built after 99, I'm going to say, you have to have hardwired smoke detectors, and then I think it's anything after 2008 or something, they then have to be linked. I could be wrong, but they're rough numbers. Anyway, house built before 99, like mine, doesn't have to have wired-in smoke detectors. But so I'm just going to go ahead, get a whole bunch of these battery-powered Nest Protects, all right? And I'm going to put them in all the bedrooms. And the beautiful thing is, because they're Wi-Fi, they communicate with each other, so they're linked, right? Don't have to get an electrician out to do it. It doesn't use the cloud, doesn't use the actual Wi-Fi of my network. The Nest Protects, I believe, have their own Wi-Fi, so that they use off their batteries. So which is really nice.
and there's also, again, this isn't an advert for Nest Protect by any means, and it is definitely a much more expensive option than a regular smoke alarm. Get something if you have nothing today.
Yeah, buy the $10 one, right, at the hardware store.
Connected, just get something. But if you can, there is advantages. And there's a bunch of Zigbee ones as well that I have seen. And if that's your jam, then great.
As well.
Yeah. So just get them if you are able to afford the connected ones. That's even better. Like the smart ones, that's even better. Just a little PSA. Again, we had someone who I'm friends with. He went through that, so hopefully, if we can save a couple of lives, that'll be good. So please don't skimp out on that. I'm actually looking at getting natural gas detectors as well, because it's mostly methane, I think. So so it's just like CH4, right? They exist. I know next to nothing about them. But if anybody's got recommendations on them, leave if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment or feedback at haspodcast.io. That would be phenomenal. Ideally, it's like a Zigbee one, or even Z-Wave's fine. But
that's nice. I didn't realize that was a thing. So it makes perfect sense. So like you leave the stove on accidentally, it'd be nice to know.
I've seen them. I don't think it's very common. Like there's definitely no like rule here where we need to have one or something like that. I know you get like the manual detectors where you take the little probe and stick it next to your like fireplace or whatever, and if it's leaking, it'll beep. At minimum, I think I'm gonna just invest in one of those if I can't find anything else. But ideally, I'd like to your point, Phil, like have one maybe over, like I have a gas water heater, for example, have one over the water heater,
Nice.
right? That way,
Yep.
and or around like a couple of my fireplaces, which are gas as well. And I have a gas stove. So I actually have quite a bit of natural gas in the house
Yep.
from an appliance perspective. My dryer is not, but other than that, a lot of my appliances are. So, yeah.
Do you have any plans to remove gas?
No, costs too much at this point. So, it's yeah. I mean, if I can avoid if I can avoid using it altogether, like we don't like sometimes we'll fire the fireplace up, some of the stuff like that, but it's not often because again, it's we're luckily we have central heating here as well, which
Yep.
again comes through a gas furnace, right?
Yeah.
And but so I don't really need to necessarily use my fireplace and stuff. So I do typically, especially in the summers and stuff, I just turn them right off. Like I turn the gas right off to it.
Yep.
And the pilot light off. So yeah, I try and not use it where I can.
Like where I am, they're really like trying to get people just to move to electricity, get rid of like gas, and I would love to be in that position. Just I've only got the furnace or thermostat, or the central heating, sorry,
Yeah,
the stove and the hot water. When I get those three things done, I can be gas free.
yeah. I know at some point here, gas was way cheaper. Like natural gas was way cheaper than electricity. So that's also, even though electricity is more renewable and stuff. So I think they've both gone up far enough that that's not necessarily the case. Maybe I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a while, but
You can always put solar panels on, but I don't know if you're going to make your own gas. I mean, I've seen some ways it can be done, but
yeah, I'm not starting a science project in my
yeah.
house. All right. So that's my little PSA. But if anybody knows any detectors for natural gas, which I believe in North America is primarily composed of methane, let me know. Please and thank you.
I think I read somewhere, maybe it's an old wives' tale, but I think naturally the gas that comes through doesn't have a smell. They actually add an odor so that you can smell it. Yeah, right. Crazy.
Yeah,
a bit like how margarine's grey. They put food dye in to make it yellow.
What? I didn't know that.
Butter. Yeah,
I'm not a big margarine guy, anyways. But yeah,
it's gotta be butter all the way.
Yeah,
don't do much.
Gross. That's
yeah,
it's great. I didn't know that.
All right. Sorry if anyone's having breakfast and they've just got margarine like happens again. And last topic for today, another sad one or a frustrating one that I read on the Building the Open Home newsletter, which is from Home Assistant. Paulus does it once a month. If you don't subscribe to it, do subscribe. It's a great little read. Has a few little Home Assistant projects around the community that are being done. There was a little article in there that Amazon is now going to charge you, was it like a couple of bucks a month or something, to use your Echo Show 8 as a digital photo frame. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I know they're not
we
making
heard,
enough
we
money
heard
from...
rumors about this.
Yeah.
So dumb.
I know they're not making enough money from that little smart assistant, but
yeah,
that's, I mean, bring on Year of the Voice and get rid of those devices, all right? I mean, maybe another year needs to be, we've done voice, now we need to do the display aspect of, I mean, I've got dashboards and stuff, but...
I mean, honestly, at that point, I'd replace it with like a tablet or something. It effectively is a tablet, right? So,
with a nice speaker. If you got the
yeah. So if you can replace it, I know some of the ones that look like the frame and stuff like that, those are nice. I think hopefully we're getting to the point where we don't need to have a reliance on folks like Amazon. To your point, You're the Voice is a great it's called first, second, third step into that world. Yeah.
So there you go. 2023.11, a fantastic release. So we've seen lawnmowers, now to-do lists. I'm sure there's been another device class out of this year too, but
there's been at least one.
Fantastic release.
Beautiful.
We'll be back for 2023.12. We'll have a special guest. Not that it'll be a big surprise for anyone that's a regular listener. Hopefully joining us for our last release episode for the year. That's us. We'll see you in a month.
Cheers.
Cheers.